Hey, welcome back to the Ping Pong Flix Show. My name is Chris Wong. This is episode 381 of the Ping Pong Flix Show, and there's a couple of doozies with the DCEU. The first one up is a major rumor. It could possibly be just some fan casting. This is coming from It's Ryan, the BYO show. It's a small little Twitter channel, but they put this out, and Batman Files actually also put this out as well. They're saying it's rumored that Pierce Brosnan is being courted for the role of Alfred Pennyworth in Matt Reeves' The Batman. Now, I am actually kind of okay on this. Pierce Brosnan is a phenomenal actor. He's at that age range already. He's not no young guy anymore, and he could possibly fill that role. He used to be James Bond, and Alfred used to be kind of like an agent himself, so I think that would kind of work perfectly, especially if this is going to be a younger Batman per se, with Robert Pattinson being the Batman, and seeing how he, even though he's like in his 30s, it's still not an older Batman. So I would say that having Pierce Brosnan, who appears actually maybe younger than Jeremy Irons, but still not as a very young Alfred, I still think it would work very well. And like I said, this is just a rumor for now, but it could potentially be interesting. Next thing is about Batgirl. A little bit, maybe it's about Batgirl. This is coming actually from a little snippet in I believe it's like the Hollywood Reporter, and it actually talks a little bit about top 30 kids are under 18, and Ella J. Basco is donning the Batgirl's mantle. I'm going to read this to you. Ella J. Basco, known for Birds of Prey, Basco makes her film debut in February, donning Batgirl's mantle opposite Margot Robbie in Warner Brothers' DC movie Birds of Prey. Though the role likely won't showcase her singer-songwriter skills, she plays guitar, piano, and ukulele. Her hip-hop dance training will come to play for combat choreography. Basco, the niece of Hook star Dante Basco, has also guested on Veep and Grey's Anatomy. So that is quite interesting, and it's kind of cool to see that her physicality will be portrayed in this film, even though she probably also has a stunt person to actually do some of those moves. But saying donning Batgirl's mantle, I don't know if that's a huge giveaway. Did they intended to say that? Is that in a future thing? Because it potentially could actually get there, because Cassandra Cain does don Batgirl's mantle later on in the comics. For all intents and purposes, Birds of Prey usually includes Batgirl in their team. So a lot of us actually thought Batgirl would show up, and then it became a Cassandra Cain instead. And so a lot of people, including myself, speculated that Batgirl could show up. Now, the interesting thing is that there is a Batgirl movie that they're trying to make. Christina Hodson, who wrote for Birds of Prey, is also writing for Batgirl. And so that would completely make sense if they took Ella J. Basco, have her complete her role as Cassandra Cain, turn into Batgirl by the end of Birds of Prey, in order to move on to the new movie that Christina Hodson's making, called called Batgirl. So that would totally make sense, and it would actually fit into that kind of a set of movies that they want to make, involving in a way the Birds of Prey, Bat Family, Harley Quinn, that type of route, and I think that would completely make sense. But the interesting about this is that there's rumors and news today that Birds of Prey are going to go into major reshoots. Now, nobody said major reshoots. There are some people that says minor reshoots. The only person that's actually saying major reshoots is Grace Randolph. Of course, she has a weird kind of not so positive things to say of Birds of Prey here and there, but she did tout out spoiled the whole kind of story over Birds of Prey, that I did not want to regurgitate. So, but she said it's major reshoots, hoping that they de-Suicide Squad it or things like that for that matter. Other people, including some of the scoopers out there, are actually saying that it's a minor reshoots and possibly to actually connect it to the Suicide Squad, also connected to Batgirl or something like that, throwing little its and beats and pieces in there, which actually to me makes a lot more sense than actually major reshoots. I think they're pretty much done with it, and I would actually probably safely kind of assume and speculate that it makes more sense that they're trying to connect it in a way to the Suicide Squad movie that James Gunn is doing. The script seems to be done. Sean Gunn loves the script, like I said yesterday, and knowing full well that Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is in both movies, they're possibly thinking for like a post-credit scene on how to connect Harley Quinn from Birds of Prey to the Suicide Squad, perhaps something like that. Or maybe, just maybe, Jared Leto's done with Morbius. He's back. He's shaven. He's actually getting back in shape, possibly. Maybe shooting a cameo role as the Joker in Birds of Prey. That's a possibility as well. Or it could be that Cassandra Cain, like right here, is donning the Batgirl, maybe for a post-credit scene to connect to a future Batgirl movie, which is also being written, like I said, by Christina Hodson. So there's a lot of different possibilities for doing reshoots, and it's not a big deal. Movies go through reshoots all the time. It's a big deal when movies go into gigantic reshoots in order to kill the movie. And turn it to something else, kind of like the Snyder Cut of Justice League. And now that we're getting into that talk, I want to actually talk about this Mark Hughes interview that he did on Shanlian. Is it Shanlian or Shannon? On Batman. He has a podcast out, episode 138. I'm going to link that into the description below so you can go ahead and check that out on SoundCloud. Listen to that there. But on this podcast, they welcomed Mark Hughes back on to chat about the Joker, Birds of Prey, the Batman, and when he believes that we will be seeing the Snyder Cut of Justice League. Now, a little bit of, he talks a bit about the Joker and how it's how there's people have been hearing the plot and the spoilers and stuff, like having opinions about that, which is rather interesting. Birds of Prey, how he kind of talks about that as well. The Batman, how it's going to be like more noir, more mysterious, more mystery crime type noir rather than a sci-fi, rather than the Tim Burton's '89 Batman. But he feels that Matt Reeves will still go into some of the not extreme elements, but more elements that are more fantastical as well. Multiple villains, like we've heard already. He also believes that the Bat family is going to be in this as well, which is interesting, knowing full well how kind of young, I guess in the 30s, Robert Pattinson's Batman is going to be, but that Nightwing, or actually Dick Grayson, will be in this trilogy as well, amongst possibly other Bat family. Batgirl, for instance, would also be there, which is also spurs up another conversation within that podcast, that he is trying to say that the Batgirl, they're leaning towards Batgirl and Supergirl and the Batman, which I thought was a rather kind of very intriguing to hear him say that, because he's been talking about that before, how they're going to do the Batman, they're going to do Batgirl within that same universe, and Supergirl within that same universe. It kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? Sounds like we got this covered, where they talked about their splitting two different universes, where Matt Reeves, the Batman, will spur a new line of DC, their own DCEU, for instance, and then we still have the other DCEU with Aquaman, Wonder Woman, that's working out for here. So whether that's true or not, who's to know? But I kind of doubt that they will be making two Batgirl films, one with Christine Hodgson's doing that is in relation to Birds of Prey, and then also one that's in relation to the Matt Reeves the Batman. That would be confusing as hell, but or it could be the same movie. So I am very intrigued by that notion that he was spurring, that they were building it that way. It seems to just be different in comparison to what they're building on this side of with Birds of Prey being connected to the first Suicide Squad, being connected to DCEU. So I don't know how that's going to work, but I thought that was an interesting conversation. Of course, the most interesting conversation is the result of is about the Snyder Cut. Like I said, he opens with that. He opens with the Snyder Cut, and he actually expects that the Snyder Cut will be released on HBO Max as a show of good faith, as about making money, about getting more subscribers. A lot of things that I've talked about before, and it just does make sense to me. Now, he also expecting that it's either later this year or possibly even better next year. That actually makes sense as well, as HBO Max is coming out in the fall of this year, and once they get that going, they may release it next year, which actually totally makes sense as well. And now you're wondering, well, how can that be if it's not finished, if it's not done? And you'll probably be right. There's got to be a version or a cut of it or something that is a Snyder Cut Justice League that is already done, besides the theatrical Justice League. Now, I hope all this is not being said and he's actually talking about the extended version of Joss Whedon's Justice League, because if that's the case, that'll be majorly disappointing. But he goes on and discusses it further, and he goes on to all his interactions online, which I'm actually probably a part of as well, including the 165 and the 214 and things like that. But let's take out all those numbers. So what he's basically trying to say is that there's many cuts of the Justice League and that Zack Snyder had worked on past the assembly cut. It's after Joss Whedon came on, but before Joss Whedon fully took over, right? So there is that aspect to that I thought was kind of cool, that there are possibilities for other journalists to partake into this information and realize, like Mark Hughes says, that the studio was lying to them, that it's not at the 75% assembly cut stage. It has gone further past that. It has gone further past to, he actually does say 92 to 95. And then they kept bringing 95. So 95%, that's a big percentage of completeness that should be, that should really make you curious about that, right? Whatever time, whatever runtime, he says is 2 hour, 45 minute plus. That could even essentially could go to 3 hours, things like that. Let's not too focus on the numbers here, but that let's focus on the part where there is a 95+% cut of Justice League all Snyder Justice League that's out there that could possibly release. In fact, Mark Hughes even expects it to be released on HBO Max. I thought hearing that was so specific to the point that it can't just be his speculation. In the way he talks about how this could go, he doesn't know. But in other aspects in that conversation where it does sound like he expects it to happen. Like it's in the talks to happen. And that gets me freaking excited. It really does. It's more exciting to hear it from people in the industry rather than some guy like here on YouTube. I mean, I gotta be honest. I mean, he's from Forbes. He has some internals. He talks about things. Maybe they're lying to him. Maybe they're not. But there are the ones that actually get into contact with the studio, and it depends on the studio if they want to leak out that information. And he goes into some of that with Robert Pattinson news as well, hearing about Robert Pattinson, but not going for it because, I think they decided to give that Robert Pattinson news to Variety instead, or Deadline, whoever. But in any case, having him, just hearing him just hearing him being very confident in that part where it's just business sense, where they would release the Snyder Cut on HBO Max, is actually, it just makes my heart warm. I think I just like, you can finally see possibly the end of the tunnel here. And I could go into more discussion about how this could turn out and stuff like that, but I won't. I think in generally just in its basic, just, very caterpillar stage of just the essential quote there, that he expects Warner Brothers to release the Snyder Cut on HBO Max, is absolutely music to my ears. I could care less at this point if it's in theaters. I could care less in point that it comes out on Blu-ray. That all that could definitely happen. Things like that could happen. But just having those words, expect to release, is enough for me to say this would be a huge, a glorious win for Zack Snyder and crew. And of course, this is going to have to be okayed by Zack Snyder, of course, because he does have some DGA rights in which he has to be present for any new cut that Warner Brothers wants to do. But essentially, that's the thing that's going to happen. It's either Warner Brothers wants to release it, or that Warner Brothers Zack Snyder wants to do right by Zack Snyder and letting him do what Zack Snyder wants. So with that in mind, I think today's little podcast, even though maybe you don't trust Mark Hughes or not, I would probably be a little bit more excited about hearing that from Mark Hughes, from someone in the up there in hearing the scoops, more in the scoop game than not in the scoop game, right? So I think that is just as basic raw concept of Warner Brothers actually going to release the Snyder Cut on HBO Max is fantastic. That's phenomenal. But in case that doesn't happen anytime soon and they need a little bit more encouragement, InkToThePeople have put out this cool little video. InkToThePeople is that company where these T-shirts from Release the Snyder Cut is happening, and they actually had a cool video of it printing the Release the Snyder Cut for the New York Comic Con shirt, and that's the sneak peek right here. Go ahead and get it if you want it. Go and get it. Support Release the Snyder Cut. Support InkToThePeople, and I think a lot of that proceeds will probably go to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Just knowing how McD works, and that is quite honestly pretty cool stuff they're doing here. And if you want to talk a little bit more about this, and I'm gonna go to probably some great background depth on anything that Louis Centeno wants to talk about, I will be joining him on his first live show. He's got a YouTube channel this Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which equates to me early in the morning, 6 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time, with me and my black, no cream, no sugar coffee, in order to discuss anything from the DCEU, whatever, tinfoil rumors, whatever. He wants to talk about protests in Hawaii. I don't know if I have much information on that, but cool. But so yeah, check it out. I'll link his YouTube channel in the description below. Check it out. Subscribe if you want to support him. Great guy. I know him from talking to him over the phone and messaging back and forth. He's all the way out in Florida, and I'm literally on the other side across the water. So it's gonna be rather interesting, really cool. And I know Dave's gonna have a show this Friday. If I can make it, that'd be great. I could probably go on the vodka stream as well, but we'll see. We'll play that one by ear. But anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful Friday. I look forward to talking to you again, whether it's on a show or maybe a video I might do, depending on what comes up. But I want to thank you so much for subscribing. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.